Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day today. Today, we are going to begin our look at the Declaration of Independence. And specifically, we're going to look at the introduction and the preamble, the first two parts that really set this document up. And so when you think about the Declaration, a little background, obviously you covered this hopefully in 8th grade, but the Declaration of Independence was sent to Great Britain in 1776 by the American colonies to declare their independence and announce the creation of the United States of America. So this was the beginning of the journey for the United States to become a free country. But obviously, just declaring your independence isn't enough. You have to win the war. And if you don't win the war, it all means nothing. But obviously we did. We're a free nation, which is great. So there are four main parts to the Declaration. The first is your introduction, and it introduces the reader to the need for the document. It introduces the reader to this idea that people break away to create their own governments. And we'll look at that today. The second part is a preamble, and it outlines the purpose of government and reasons to remove a government if it is wronging you. And so we'll look at that as well. The third part, the body, you'll look at later, and this outlines the grievances, the ways that the colonists were abused by Great Britain and its king. And fourth is the conclusion. And the conclusion declares independence from Great Britain, and you have the signature of all those founding fathers. So we're going to look at the first two parts, the introduction and the preamble, and we're going to read the original text, and then I'll kind of break it down and translate it so that it makes sense in our modern language today. So here we go. This is your introduction, and it says the following. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station in which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Whew, that's a mouthful. So there's a lot of things going on with the language there, but at its core, what we're looking at here is people separating. And if they're going to separate and they're going to create their own equal government, what should they do? So here's my translation. When in history it's necessary to break away from a government you've been a part of and to create your own government, it's respectful to explain the reasons that cause you to choose to separate. So if you're going to break away and create your own government, you should explain to the people you're breaking from why you're breaking away. Why are you doing this? And so this is really setting this declaration up, declaring our independence, but here's why. It's not just us saying we're a free country. We're telling you why we're doing it as well. So the second part, the preamble, we're going to break into a few slides. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now, the beginning portion here, we're all familiar with, right? So let me get this removed for you. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. And among these rights that they have is the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so they're beginning with this idea that all people have these specific rights and that a government cannot take those rights away from them. And then the second part, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So instituted, created. Governments are created to secure rights and deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. The power of the government is because the people approve of it. They say, yes, this is our government. And then it changes tone. So the first part's all about what should a government be doing. And the second part is about what happens if it's not taking care of you. So here's my translation. We believe it is clear that all men are created equal, and they are given by their God rights which cannot be taken away. These rights are life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. Government is created by men to secure these rights. A government's power comes from the approval of their citizens. Whenever the government works to destroy these rights instead of protecting them, the people have the right to change the government or remove it. In creating a new government, it should be organized in a way to protect people's rights. And so the idea here is this is it. Government is made by the people, they give it its power, and is meant to protect our rights. The only reason we have a government is to make sure that you and I are safe, we have our freedom, and we get to choose to do what we want that's going to make us happy. That's why we have a government. But then the ending part there is saying, look, if the government is taking away your rights, if they are not protecting you, then the people have the right to create their own government. And if they do so, they should make sure that new government protects citizens' rights. So the founding fathers are really setting this up here, saying this is what government should be. However, if it's not, we have the right to make our own government. That's the beginning of this part. Next, prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for the future security. Now this one, and sometimes we analyze this in class, it takes a long time to break it down, but what you have basically at the beginning part here is they're saying that you shouldn't get rid of a government for piddly reasons, small reasons. And experience has shown that when people have gotten rid of governments, they suffer more when they're trying to make a new government. So you have the colonists are declaring their independence here, but they're starting out by saying, hey, you know what, that people suffer when they create their own governments. So it's kind of a weird thing to say, but the second part explains it all. And so let's look at this translation in those two parts. A government should not be changed or removed for small or trivial reasons. History shows that people are more likely to suffer by changing a government. However, when a government is constantly abusing its citizens and working to take away their freedoms, it is the right and duty of citizens to remove that government and create a new one which will protect them now and in the future. So basically they're saying, look, you don't do this for small reasons because it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful going from this old government and now creating our new government. However, if the government you are a part of is abusing you, is not protecting your rights, then it's your right and your duty to get rid of it. You need to remove that government, strip it away, and create a new one that will protect you. And so that's what we see the founding fathers are saying here. We understand this is going to be painful, but we have to do it to protect our rights now and in the future. So here's the last part of the preamble. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. And now they're saying, this is our situation. We have a government, it's not protecting our rights, it's taking them away, and that's why we need to create our own new government. So, the translation. This is how the colonies have been suffering, and the reason why they must change their government. The history of the King of Great Britain shows he has repeatedly caused harm to the states and worked to make himself a dictator. To prove this, here are the facts. And so they're saying, as you can see here, the king is becoming a dictator. He's causing us suffering. And because of this, we need to make our own government. And then the last part, to prove this, here are the facts. This is going to be followed up by the grievances. And you'll have a second project that will focus on some of those specific grievances. And so they're saying, the king's abusing us. That's why we need a new government. But you know what? Don't take our word for it there. We're going to list for you all the different ways that we've suffered because of the king and the British government. And so after you have the introduction and now this, your preamble, you're going to have the grievances, and they're going to give you a big list of reasons why they've suffered. And after that, they'll follow it up by saying, look, we are an independent nation, and here we are. And they sign their names. So this is your introduction, introducing why they're leaving, and then explaining some of the reasons they're upset with the British. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. And after this, we will move into the grievances and why the colonists are so upset.